A Brazilian magistrate has ordered how the ex-CEO Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva rotate oneself into police force by deceased afternoon on Friday to start serving a 12-year verdict for corrupt practices. On Thursday, the high trial controlled versus Lula's appeal to stay complementary time he appealed versus his belief. Lula claims the extortion are politically reasoned, and intended to hinder him of fleeing for CEO in October. He had been the favorite to gain. In his procedure, Fed Magistrate Sergio Moro told how the 72-year-old must this oneself up 17 o'clock regional period, 20 o'clock GMT, on Friday at the Fed police force staff in the southern town of Curitiba. Magistrate Moro told how a specific cage was produced in preliminary, in that the former president will be separate of some prisoners, in no hazard for his ethical or natural consistency. Following the magistrate's ad, several 100 of Lula's supporters rallied external the Metal Workers Association close São Paulo. The extortion came of an against corruption inquiry named as Transactions Car Clean, that has involved top political community of several parties. Lula served as CEO among 2003 and 2011. In spite of conduct in view polls front of October's poll, he remnant a separating drawing. By Katie Watson in São Bernardo do Campo, São Paulo country external the Metal Workers Association, hundreds of human beings had collected in a bit of a climb. The gathering was hurriedly driven striker of Friday following the detention order was given. Human beings were transport placards proverb downward in the coup and no to jail. Leaders of public movements and unions tell to the mob, expressive them how they weren't departure to let Lula get detained. They were produced to put up a struggle. The issue lot human beings are wonder is if Lula will offer oneself up willingly or if he will do a shaw out of the and reject to bow out in silent. The Brazilian legislative framework normally goes at a glacier rate, so the step of the trial has amazed all. Brazil is in a country of policy meltdown and he's potential to get worse in the upcoming days. A ex-medalist and trading association militant, he was the at first leftward wing lead to do it to the chairmanship in Brazil in almost part a age. For his chairmanship, Brazil skilled its longest time of economical increase in many decades, enabling his authority to expend generously on public programs. Tens of millions were raised out of poverty reduction thanks to the initiatives undertaken by the government and he leftward office space following serial regulation, this maximal permitted in Brazil, in recording popular ratings. In 2014, following Lula leftward office space, prosecutorial begun studying concoction how management team at the country oil business Petrobras had recognized bribes in back for award contracts to building firms. The inquiry, duplicated transactions car clean, unsecured a enormous web of corrupt practices comprising upper-level political community of a wide range of parties take kickbacks. Lula oneself was condemned of reception. A renewed beach flat cost several 3.7 million reais, £790,000, as a bribery by mechanical engineering company OAS. The defense says Lula's property of the flat has never been tested and how his belief rests substantially on the speech of the ex-president of OAS, oneself condemned of corrupt practices. Lula has outlined the fight versus his belief and jail period as an extension of his struggle versus Brazil's war guideline, that came to an end in 1985. I did not take the war dictator and I will not take the dictator of the prosecutorial, he said a collection of supporters on Monday. Though he has been said to rotate oneself in, it is not specific how he will go to prison for 12 years. He has not depleted his appeals still. Down there are two high courts that he can yet rotate to, the excellent trial and the high trial. The last has just controlled for far on if he should go to prison anticipated future appeals, quite rather than on the main instance. No one of such courts would de-examine if Lula was those guilty of corrupt practices. They would see in if legislative procedures were accompanied properly and if his constitution rights were breached. The trial could get months or the year. If each trial were to guideline in Lula's favor, his belief could be revoked and he would be liberated. By a 2010 Brazilian law named Pure Roofing Slate Act, no one condemned of a criminality upheld on circulation can run for selected office space for at low 8 year. How law would guideline Lula out of fleeing for the chairmanship in October. Yet, exceptions include been done to the law up. The judgment as to if Lula can stay for CEO will otherwise in the excellent election trial, TSE. The TSE will not do a judgment on if Lula can run or not before he has recorded as a applicant, and he has before August 15 to do so. So we may not aware for months to go if he will be capable to stay.